This is Chapter 6 of Jane Yolen's The Devil's Arithmetic. "Come, it's time to get dressed," Giddle said. Dressed? Hannah looked down at the flowered smock she had on, the same awful thing she'd been wearing the night before. Anything would be better. It looked like one of her grandmother's house dresses, shapeless with faded roses. Following Giddle into the bedroom, she paused only a moment, wondering without much hope if the door would transport her back to the Bronx. But when she passed through, the small dark bedroom was still solidly itself. What was dream and what was real were getting harder and harder to distinguish. "What should I wear, Giddle?" The woman's name came easily now to her tongue. Hannah wasn't even sure where the closet was that held her clothes, her real clothes. The bedroom she and Giddle had shared had only one door, which led back to the main living room. There were two small beds in it, with a wooden chest at the foot of each, and a large standing wardrobe. Between the two beds was a washstand with a stoneware pitcher and bowl. She had already discovered, to her horror, that the bathroom was a privy outside the house, and it had no light for night visits. "You will wear the dress I wore as a child for Shmuel's bar mitzvah. He was so handsome and so nervous, just like today. It is too bad that your wonderful clothes from Lublin had to be burned along with your bedding, but the doctor said they carried the disease. As you arrived just 2 days ago, there was no time to make you anything else, but do not worry, Chaya. I will make you new clothes before winter comes." While Hannah stood in the center of the room, wondering which chest she should try first, Giddle went to the standing wardrobe, opened it, and pulled out a dark blue sailor suit dress with white piping at the sleeves and neck, and a blue sash belt. It was the ugliest thing Hannah had ever seen, and babyish. "Lovely," Giddle said. "Nicer than anything any of the girls in our shtetl or Figgs have. All the other girls will be jealous." "Jealous of that?" Hannah was momentarily speechless, then muttered under her breath, "It's a rag, a schmott." Giddle made a sound of disgust. "Ugh. In Lublin it may be a schmott, but here it is fit for a princess. Even Fig in her wedding dress will not be as beautiful. Now, young lady, no more nonsense. Perhaps we have been babying you too long. Miss, I know what a wedding night is." Hannah's face must have shown an instant apology through burning cheeks, for Giddle came over immediately and put her arm around Hannah. There, child, forgive me. I am crazy with all this wedding business, and my tongue is sometimes quicker than my heart. Put on the dress. Perhaps it is, after all, a little out of fashion, but then so are we here in our shtetl. And you are not in Lublin now." She paused for a moment as if waiting for Hannah's reply. When there was none, she went on as before. "Try on the stockings and shoes. I only use them for a shul and for the photographer, and then I grew in 1 year too big for them. They still have plenty of wear left, and I think that they will fit you nicely. I was just your size at 15. At 16 I was a giant. Then I will do your hair for you, and everything will look nice. You will see." Hannah pulled on the dress. It fit her perfectly in the bodice and the sleeves, but came down way over her knees. Giddle didn't seem to see anything wrong with that. The stockings were a heavy skin-colored cotton that came halfway up her thighs. The shoes, shiny black, were Mary Jane's. Shaking her head, Hannah put them on as well. If she pretended she was going to a Halloween party, the outfit would be bearable. Giddle braided her hair into 2 tight plaits, then held up a pair of blue velvet ribbons. "These I was saving for my own wedding night, about which you know so much." This time her voice held a hint of laughter. "But who would marry that monster Yetziak, who leaves his precious children outside like yard goods? Besides, the ribbons will look beautiful in your brown hair." She tied them around the ends of the plait, then pinned the plaits on top of Hannah's head like a crown. "There! Look." She pushed Hannah towards the mirror that hung on the wall. Hannah looked. Gone were her braces. Gone were the light coral lipstick her mother had allowed her to wear to the Seder. The girl who stayed back had the same heart-shaped face, the same slightly crooked smile, the same brown hair, the same gray eyes as Hannah Stern of New Rochelle, New York, in America. But there was something old-fashioned and unfamiliar about this Chaya Abramowitz, something haunting, like one of the old photographs on Grandma Bell's grand piano. Photographs of Grandma's family, but none of Grandpa Will's, because Aunt Eva had once explained, no photographs had been saved in the death camps. We are our own photos. Those pictures are engraved only in our memories. When we are gone, they are gone. Hannah smiled awkwardly at her reflection and turned away. By noon, half the chateau was gathered outside the door, laughing and trading stories so loudly that the chickens hid in the barn, refusing to come out, even when 3 little boys in short pants and yarmulke tried to coax them with corn. Hannah felt a lot of the chickens nervous about the loud, strange men and the laughing, chattering women. She, too, would have hidden in the barn if she could. Sensing Hannah's timidity, Giddle kept her close as she greeted everyone by name, thanking them for the gifts as if she were the bride herself. Looking surprisingly beautiful in the dark green dress with the broad white lace collar, Giddle made sure all the tributes were piled onto 2 wagons. Crocks of butter, lengths of cloth, a white lace tablecloth, wooden bowls, and a pair of truly ugly silver candlesticks that Shmuel had announced had been sent over by the Rendar himself. Even the cages of chickens went into the wagons, 1 in each. Giddle kept rearranging the gifts, making them seem to be twice as numerous, saying, "Those Schnorners in Vyask will know that we honor our own." Near the barn, Shmuel and the other men stood smoking and laughing at one another, at one joke after another. When Giddle disappeared inside for a moment, Hannah thought that she'd stand next to Shmuel, since she really knew no one else. But when she got close, Yitzhak shooed her away as if she were one of the chickens, waving his massive hands at her and saying, "Men talk is not for young ladies." Embarrassed at being singled out that way, Hannah spun around right into the arms of a girl her own age, who looked at her with great startled green eyes. Hannah was so relieved to see another girl she almost cried out. "So, you are Lublin Chaya," the girl said, her voice catching strangely mid-sentence. Before Hannah could deny it, the girl had threaded her arm through Hannah's, calling out to a knot of girls who were standing by a newly arrived wagon, "I have found her, Lublin Chaya." They came over at a run, hair ribbons flying. "You see, we have all been waiting to meet you," the startled-looking girl explained, the breathiness in her voice more pronounced. "Ever since we heard that you were coming. Imagine someone from Lublin living in our chateau. But Tante Giddle was so fierce. Do you know my father calls her Giddle the Bear?" "My father, too," said one of the other girls. "She said that we could not meet you until you had rested because you were so seriously ill. Almost died, she said." The startled girl pulled each statement out as if it was a rare gift to be examined, breathing deeply after each sentence. 10 weeks in the hospital, and no one here knowing. But she promised that we would meet you at the wedding, and here you are." Hannah pulled a smile across her face in greeting. At least the dream, or whatever it was, would be more interesting with girls her own age in it. "Now, let me introduce you," the breathless girl said. "This is Shifri, Esther, and Yenta, but we call her the Cossack." They each bobbed a head and turned. "And she drew in a deep, heavy breath. "I am Rachel. I am going to be your best friend." "I already have a best friend," Hannah said. "At home. Her name is Rosemary." "What kind of a name is Rosemary?" asked one of the girls. Hannah thought it might have been Shifri. "It is a Goyish name," Rachel said at once. "Do you mean to say that your best friend is not a Jew?" "As a matter of fact, she's Catholic," Hannah said, as if that matters. "As if that matters!" The girls were clearly shocked, and Esther added, "My father will not even let me talk to a Goy." "Esther, your father will not let you talk to someone from Vyask," said Rachel. "Well, I'm going to talk to someone from Vyask today," Esther answered, "after I talk to Lublin Chaya." Hannah turned to Rachel, shaking her head slowly. "You can be my second best friend, Rachel, My first best friend here. It seemed somehow important to keep the two worlds separate. She was sure Rosemary would understand. The girls all smiled at her, waiting for something else, and Hannah could not figure out what. Trying to memorize their faces to distinguish them, she saw that Chiffrey had pale, freckled face and eyelashes so light that they could not be seen. It made her eyes look shifty. Chiffrey, shifty. She could remember that. And Esther was plump, with rosy cheeks and a mouth that seemed to rest in a pout. She was round like an Easter egg. Esther, Easter. The third girl, the Cossack Yenta, had a ferrety face, sharpened chin and nose, and a yellowish complexion. Yenta, yellow. It was a good, special way of remembering that Aunt Ava had taught her. It worked so well she got A's in school using it. And Rachel was just Rachel, her second best friend, first here in the chateau, in the dream. So, Rachel said, interrupting her thoughts, tell us about Lublin. Hannah realized it would be useless telling them that she lived in New Rochelle, as it had been trying to convince Gittel and Shmuel. The truth was, she was beginning to wonder herself whether she was Hannah and Chaya was the dream, or if she was Chaya and Hannah was some sort of mishgas, some craziness in her head from the sickness. Yet there were all those memories of the house and school and Seder, of mother and father and Aaron and Aunt Ava and the rest. She could not have made them all up, unless she was a genius or crazy or both. She had no choice. In Lublin, she began, thinking to Rochelle, I live in a house that has 8 bedrooms, and the toilets are inside the house. 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs. In the house? Rachel let it out in one breath. Imagine, said Yenta, your parents must have been fabulously wealthy, richer than Yitzhak the butcher, as rich almost as the Rendar himself. The Rendar's house has 12 rooms, Rachel said. 13, Yenta corrected. My mother's sister is his housekeeper. Her sharp nose twitched as she talked. Your mother's sisters cannot count, said Rachel. She thinks there are 13 eggs in a dozen. She thinks there are 9 days of Hanukkah, added Chiffrey. She thinks there are 5 fingers on a hand, Esther put in dreamily. Idiot. There are 5 fingers on a hand, Rachel said to Esther. I know that. Never mind her, Rachel confided to Hannah. She never understands a joke. Now, Chaya, tell us more. More? Hannah said, trying to think what might interest them. Well, during the week I go to school, and on the weekends I go with Rosemary to the mall. And school, too? Hannah said with a sigh. Only boys are allowed to go to school here. I always wanted to go. You want to go? Hannah was shocked. No one I know does. We can't wait for the weekends. That's when we can have fun, go shopping, and it was the girls who turned to be shocked. Shopping on the Sabbath? Rachel asked. Esther was still thinking about the school. I heard once about a girl who disguised herself as a boy and went to the yeshiva to study the Torah. I do not believe it. I know that story. Hannah's voice rose in excitement. It's called Yentl and stars Barbra Streisand in the movie. She chops off her hair and... Chops off her hair? Appalled, Chiffrey put her hands up to her own pale braids. And not married? We have never seen a movie, said Esther, but I have heard of them. Never mind from movies, Rachel said sternly, the breathiness gone from her voice for once. And no more interruptions. Tell her this story of Yentl, Chaya, from the beginning.